We tend to look at Switzerland today as a blessed paradise, winning the geographic lottery. But in 1816, it was one of the poorest and most desperate corners of the world. The situation in the early 19th century was bleak. With crops failing in the freezing climate, the Swiss were starving. They were reduced to eating grass, moss, and tree bark just to survive. The poverty was so severe that children walked to Germany alone, hoping to find manual labor. This map of 19th century Europe illustrates why Switzerland was considered a guaranteed failure. They are completely landlocked, with no access to sea trade routes. Furthermore, 75% of their territory is covered by mountains, making it nearly impossible to farm. This map also shows a total absence of natural wealth. While coal, iron, and oil icons appear in high density across neighboring empires like Britain, Germany, and Russia, the space within the Swiss borders remains completely empty. This was a frozen, isolated rock with zero natural resources, yet it managed to engineer the most dramatic economic ascent in human history. In the 1850s, a politician and businessman named Alfred Escher realized that the global railway boom was leaving Switzerland behind. While neighboring nations were using rail to slash transport costs by 95%, the Swiss were still moving goods by mule and cart. Escher knew that building tracks through mountains required massive capital, so he bypassed foreign banks and established his own, Credit Suisse. He crowdfunded the railway project by offering shares directly to the Swiss people, a move so successful that the offer was oversubscribed 73 times. However, money alone couldn't build a mountain railway. Switzerland had no engineering colleges and no homegrown talent capable of designing such a complex network. To solve the talent deficit, Switzerland leveraged the chaos of its neighbors. While revolutions destabilized Europe in 1848, Switzerland wrote a new constitution guaranteeing free speech and a free press, turning cities like Zurich into the safest sanctuary for the continent's intellectuals. This policy attracted the most brilliant minds in Europe. Richard Wagner arrived in Zurich with an arrest warrant in hand, and Vladimir Lenin sat in Swiss libraries plotting revolutions. This influx of talent allowed Switzerland to build world-class institutions like the Federal Polytechnic. These universities didn't just educate the Swiss, they became global hubs for science and engineering, eventually training minds like Albert Einstein. With this new engineering expertise, they set out to pierce the Alps. This 3D cross-section shows the shift. Swiss engineers drilled a railway straight through the mountain, replacing the treacherous 3-day trek over the Gotthard Pass with a single horizontal line. That tunnel turned Switzerland from a landlocked obstacle into the indispensable transit hub of Europe. By connecting the industrial north to the Mediterranean south, the Swiss made themselves the center of the continent's trade. Once the physical connections were built, Switzerland entered a second phase of growth. They began using radical policy loopholes to sell products and services they didn't actually have. In 1934, as global instability grew, Switzerland passed a bank secrecy law that made it a criminal offense for any banker to reveal an account owner's identity. They were selling privacy in a world defined by fear. This policy turned the Swiss franc into the only currency the world still trusted during World War II. Because the German mark was worthless for international trade, the Nazi Party traded looted gold for Swiss francs, effectively making Switzerland Hitler's banker. They applied this same opportunistic logic to the chemical industry. While other nations enforced strict patent laws, Switzerland systematically ignored them for an entire century, allowing any intellectual property to be copied on their soil without penalty. This flowchart shows the result. Brilliant chemists flocked to Switzerland to copy French dye formulas without fear of lawsuits. Over time, those dyes evolved into a $169 billion global pharmaceutical industry. Even their famous chocolate was a value-add play. Switzerland has no native cocoa trees, but inventors like Daniel Peter and Rudolf Lindt perfected techniques for milk and conching. They turned cheap, imported raw materials into a high-value global export. They did the same with watchmaking. By applying extreme engineering precision to basic materials like iron and brass, they created a luxury product that became the global standard for quality. Switzerland's prosperity was never about mining its own land. They extracted their fortune by legislating and engineering extreme value onto the resources and money of the rest of the world. Today, many developing nations sit on massive troves of gold, oil, and iron, yet they continue to struggle with poverty and lose their best talent to the West. These resources remain buried value unless a nation builds the connectivity to move them and maintains the political agility to pass opportunistic laws as the global economy changes. The Swiss didn't find a shortcut to wealth. They escaped starvation because one generation committed to a 200-year plan, building infrastructure and passing policies that they refuse to abandon. The real question today is whether their political systems have the stamina and citizens the boldness to execute a strategy on this scale. The Swiss experience shows that a nation's true fortune is the one it builds for itself. Because prosperity is a product of design.